Yes, it works.
Okay.
So, hi guys, we are live on YouTube and we are, okay, I can hear myself. Okay, so today we're going to talk about studying in UK and we have myself and Saskia here and we're going to answer your questions about studying in UK. So how are you doing, Saskia?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Great. So we have a lot of students interested in studying in UK.
Yes.
So what do you think are the advantages of studying in UK versus other countries?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things is that I feel like for a lot of people, the quality is very much on par with some of the best universities in the world. So if you're thinking about studying abroad and you want to study in an English-speaking country and study a degree that's specifically taught in English, that's a very high quality. People generally think about the US, Canada, and the UK. And then they also think about like Australia as well. But I think that for a lot of people, it's also quite affordable if you compare it with North American universities. So I think for a lot of people, that really makes it very a very big goal for them. And also seeing as there's so many of the best universities are located in the UK. So that's probably one of the reasons why people really would like to study there.
Yeah, that's true. So I see from a lot of student perspective, the reason UK is so attractive is because it's English speaking. And so that's so valuable to have an English speaking education. And one of the main differences between Australia, Canada, USA, studying in those places is that UK has so much history for is much older country, so it has such a rich, interesting history and culture. And so that's
Yeah.
it's a very unique place to study, and it has
Yeah.
so many interesting places in UK. It's a small country compared to China, compared to US, but it has
Yeah.
so many interesting, cool places in UK. And another massive advantage of studying in UK is that you can get work. You can easily get a visa after you graduate. There's a post-study visa, which means it's very attractive for students. There's also another advantage is that people can bring their partner to UK. So if someone studies in UK, they can also bring their husband or wife, which is also quite attractive compared to other
Mm-hmm.
countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had a question from a student. Does it rain every day in England? I think this is a conception that some people have. Do you have that conception that it's very rainy in England?
I do, especially as someone that grew up in South Africa, you meet a lot of British people. And I guess the biggest difference when you ask them what's the difference between the two countries is that there's a lot less sun. So I think that a lot of people, a lot of comedians make jokes about it. You see it a lot of times in movies and TV shows. It always kind of seems gray. But I've never personally been to the UK, so I'm not actually sure. You'll probably have a better answer.
Yeah, so I think UK rains more than many other countries because it's like re really close to the ocean. So, but one of the advantages of it is it means that England is really green. It's like really beautiful and green, which is quite different to like more green than many other countries. But if you don't like rain, you can. I mean, it's not too bad. You just need to be able to have an umbrella. The weather changes quite frequently in the UK. Sometimes it can rain for a bit and stop raining, and lots of people like to talk about the weather. For example, when I speak to my parents, they will often not start asking me about the weather, even when I'm in
Yes.
a country that has very similar weather most of the time. It's
Yes.
like a national topic of conversation.
Yes, I feel
And
like that's a very
yeah,
big British stereotype. Is that if you meet a British person, they always ask you about the weather.
yeah, I've heard that. So it's people like to talk about it. So yeah, how do you choose a university in UK? And I think there's one of the main questions is if you want to live in London or not, because London is like the main city of England. It's like the international city where there's a lot going on. And one of the biggest differences between London and other cities is that the living expenses is a lot higher in London, and it depends on your budget if students want to study in London versus other cities in England. But how do you choose the universities based on basically London or not? If you want to live in a campus university, for a campus university, it's going to have like more of a different feel to a city university. And then you're going to decide about the cost. And actually, there's many different kinds of cities in England. All over England, they're all pretty different. If you look in the north, or you want to live by the sea, they're all very different. So there's a lot of unique choices, a lot of different choices in UK. In total, there's 166 universities in UK, and there's lots of different regions, places to study. So there's a lot of choice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they are thinking of studying in a certain country, they might not know about a lot of the different cities that are available to them. So I think when people think of the UK, they tend to think of London first and look at universities in London, which it might not be the most reasonable for them. But they should definitely look at some other cities and towns where the living costs are more affordable, and they might even have like a university that's much better suited for them and their grades or their living style than the universities in London would.
Yeah, and we have all the information about every university in UK on global admissions, and if students would like, we can also help them, because it's not just about the city, it's also about the university and what strengths they have in the subject as well, because some universities are really good for engineering, some are really good for law, so you can also choose it based on that. And so the cost of studying in UK is about it varies a lot. It's going to be a bit higher compared to other countries, but it's also cheaper than studying in US. So the average for an international student is going to be about 20,000 per year for tuition for a master's program, around that kind of range. And then the living expense is going to be about 1,000 or 2,000, between 1,000 and 2,000 per month, depending on where students live.
And are the students, do a lot of universities offer accommodation, or is it quite a rare thing?
Yeah, so because actually the international students in UK has been growing really fast, so there's a kind of limited accommodation in many universities. And so a lot of students need to choose outside the university, either by looking at private accommodation, or there's a lot of different options. But because the accommodation is normally booked quite far in advance, so lots of people will look like the year before. So it's important to try and get it organized as soon as possible, so that there is a space.
Okay.
And we do have some information on global admissions, like more information about it.
Yeah.
And then, so for the visa process, basically when students have been accepted, they will need to have a certificate of to show that they've been accepted. Then they can apply for the visa. It should be about 6 months before they have before the program starts. Then need to take a medical test and fill out the visa form and submit all the documents, and also show the deposit for the program before as well. So that's mainly the process. Do you have any? I mean the visa process is kind of quite simple. Do you have any questions about the process?
Yeah, I know for the visa process, the medical test is often required. It's the same as when applying to Chinese universities, is that you need to do a medical test to just make sure that you're healthy enough in order to study abroad. So that is generally part of the visa process as well, so that everyone can just note that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is like tuberculosis test. Yeah. And so it's not as big of a test as the China one. The China is more like testing everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the requirements regarding the English requirements and the English fluency, what is generally expected by UK universities?
So in terms of IELTS, it's normally between. It depends on the level of program. If it's like a foundation program, it's going to be lower, around like 6.5. Some of them will be 6 if it's like a foundation program. If it's like, because then they will help with the English. And then as the program gets more advanced, then it will need a higher level of English. So up to 7.5 for like a higher master's or PhD program. And each program will clearly have that requirement on the website. So it's quite easy to find the information about it.
Okay. And what about people that maybe, do they have to have IELTS or the TOEFL test, or is there any other way to apply that's generally accepted?
Yeah, normally for that, they will need the IELTS or the TOEFL for applying to UK. And it's needed to have that when they apply. So it's quite strict, especially if you're applying from a country that doesn't speak English, such as China, but it's also required for other countries as well, where English is not the main language, but people still speak English. So it's quite important to do that.
Yes, I've heard with a lot of people that want to study in English-speaking countries that even if they've done their entire education in English, if they're coming from a country that generally doesn't have English as a first language, then they'll need to do a TOEFL or IELTS.
Yeah, I think if you studied in a university or high school in English, if it's like an international school, then it's usually shouldn't be necessary, but it depends a little sometimes. But sometimes you can send that instead of the IELTS or TOEFL. And about working part-time, so we have this information on our website about every country, how much you can work part-time. And in England, it should be 20 hours a week in term time. And we have more information about that on Global Admissions and about how long students should work.
Yeah. And it will also generally be on your visa. It will state how many hours you're allowed to work.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to note.
Yeah, so we actually have the guide. I can see if I can share it here. So here we have the guide of every country in the world. And here you can see that UK can work less than 20 hours, but they must meet certain conditions. Can work less than 20 hours. And there can be some paid, unpaid internships. And sometimes they can get academic credit for it. But it's important to check this really carefully with the university for students before they apply. I mean, before they do the work, it's important to check it with the university because it may change, and it's also important that it is approved by the university. Like the university is fine with it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's. I think we covered some of the main questions, and then we have a lot more articles about it. And then if any students have any questions, they can let us know in the comments, and we'll create more. Do you have any other questions about studying in UK or from students?
Yeah, I do wonder I mean, I know that you did study in the UK for a part of your education. And do you think that studying in the UK, generally it's more intensive than maybe studying in some other places? Or what can students expect from studying in a UK university?
Yeah, I think it varies a bit on the program because some of the programs like medicine are very intensive, or engineering, or some of these programs are much more intensive. But compared to like a Chinese university, which has in the UK, you don't need to attend the classes. You will not be penalized if you don't attend. You will just, or like for certain classes, it's not as strict as it is in China. But So it's actually you're kind of more. It's in a way you're more independent, and it's more up to you about how you about meeting the requirements and
Yeah.
making sure that you're like understanding the material. But it's
Mhm.
definitely a good idea to go to as many classes as possible because that's one of the best ways to learn
Yes.
well. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, some of
And
the courses
also,
have fewer hours, but it's more
yeah.
about reading, and then you'll have tutorials as well, which is quite an advantage of the UK system, which is you'll have like smaller classes where you'll go through the material in the group, and it's like a really good way of learning and going over material with other people because one of the big things about studying at university is like teaches you how to think and you're like refining ideas with other people and you're questioning the teachers, you're having discussions. That's one of the
Yeah.
really good things about studying in UK because it's very you can speak very you can develop your reasoning and your arguing and questioning and this kind of ability. But it depends on what course you're studying because different courses focus on different things.
Hmm. Hmm. No, definitely. I mean, it depends on I guess, which university you're going to as well. But like you said, definitely going to class, especially in the beginning, if you're studying a new subject, is very important in making sure that you attend most of them if it's possible for you, because that's the best way you're going to learn, and it's the best way to put, your foot forward and learn about that subject. Some universities, like I know in some Chinese universities, the first year is generally not very intensive, and then it gradually becomes more intensive as the years go by. And then, but I also know, like for other universities, like I know a lot of American universities, the first year is extremely intensive, so that a lot of the people that maybe can't finish the program will maybe realize within that year they need to switch to a different program that works for them. So it's very interesting seeing how different universities test the students. And I think that for everyone, like you said, it's just a good thing to make sure you attend your classes and learn about the subject that you're enrolled in.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because in UK, a lot of universities, the first year is not counting towards your overall score.
Mhm.
So the first year you just need to pass it, and then the
Mhm.
second and third year is counting. I think because some students will come from different levels. So yeah, but it's definitely a good. It's a lot of it is a time of university is just about to how you can develop yourself and also take advantage of all the opportunities there are on campus. Because one of the great things about UK universities is there's so much going on in the
Mhm.
university, so many clubs and societies and activities that you can do. So it's not just about studying in the classroom, but it's important to be as involved as possible and try lots of new things and experience life. For a lot of people, it's the first time that they're able to try lots of different things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So great, that's good to chat, Saskia. And then we leave some more information in the comments. And thank you very much. We'll do more of these. So if you're interested in the future, subscribe. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great talking.